There is a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot fix. You have felt it, not in your legs, not in your eyes, somewhere deeper, in the place where all the years have quietly stacked themselves. You wake up some mornings, and before a single word has been spoken, before the day has asked anything of you, the weight is already there, settled across your shoulders like something that has been living there so long it has forgotten it does not belong. After 70, you are not tired because life was long. You are tired because the responsibility never stopped, and some of that responsibility was never yours. Pause with that for a moment. You carried your children's disappointments. You absorbed your partner's moods. You bent yourself into the shape that your family needed. You dressed yourself in the costume that society handed you and called it identity, and you did it willingly, because you loved, because you cared, because somewhere along the way you learned that carrying more meant being worthy. But here is a quiet truth that no one told you when you were young. Love does not require self-exhaustion. Devotion does not demand that you disappear. The Buddha taught that suffering begins with clinging. But there is a kind of clinging that is even more painful than holding on to what you want. It is holding on to what was never yours to begin with. Today, we are going to gently return 8 weights you have been carrying for decades, not in anger, not in blame, in clarity. And when you set them down, you will feel something that might surprise you. Not emptiness, space. The kind of space where a lighter chapter can finally begin. Burden 1. Other people's expectations. You know the voice. You have been hearing it your whole life. You should be stronger. You should visit more. You should give more. Sacrifice more. Ask for less. You should be grateful. You should not complain. You should have done better. You should have known. These are not your thoughts. They were handed to you. By parents, by culture, by the long history of being told who you needed to be so that other people could feel comfortable. And somewhere along the way, the handoff was so smooth that you stopped noticing the weight had passed to you at all. Expectations are invisible ropes. They do not announce themselves. They simply tighten every time you turn in a direction that is yours. I think about a woman I once heard described by a teacher who had worked with elders for many years. She was in her mid-70s, a generous woman who had spent her life showing up for everyone who needed her. But she confided one afternoon that she could not remember the last time she had made a choice simply because it felt right to her. Every decision had a committee attached to it. What will my daughter think? What will my son expect? What will the neighbors assume? The committee never took a break, neither did she. The Buddha's teaching on this is precise. He said, we suffer not from the things that happen to us, but from the clinging that wraps around those events. The expectation itself is not the problem. It is the grip. It is the belief that satisfying every demand is somehow your responsibility, your duty, your debt. Here is what is actually true. You are responsible for your intentions. You are responsible for how you treat people. You are not responsible for managing every feeling, meeting every preference, or fulfilling every unspoken demand of every person in your orbit. There is a difference between duty and preference. Duty comes from genuine care and real obligation. Preference comes from what someone else wishes were true. And most of what has been handed to you over 70 years was preference dressed up in the clothing of duty. Ask yourself, quietly, the next time you feel the tightening, is this my duty or their preference? You are allowed to sit with that question long enough to hear an honest answer. Because here is something else worth naming. Expectations do not only come from other people. Some of the most demanding expectations you carry were generated by yourself a long time ago. The standard you set for what a good mother looks like, what a good father does, what a responsible elder contributes, what a person of your background is supposed to achieve. These were often internalized before you were old enough to question them, absorbed from the people around you before your own voice had formed clearly enough to push back. Ajahn Chah taught that we suffer not from the world, but from our ideas about the world, and our ideas about ourselves, about what we should be, are often the most rigid and unexamined ideas we carry. They were constructed in a time and place and circumstance that no longer fully exists, and yet they still have tremendous power over what we allow ourselves to feel and do and be. This is not a call to abandon all standards or to stop caring about how you show up in the world. It is an invitation to look honestly at which standards are genuinely yours and which ones were handed to you before you had any say in the matter. The ones that feel like oxygen, like they are simply part of who you are, those are worth keeping. The ones that feel like a collar around the throat, those are worth examining with clear eyes and a willing heart. You get to choose which ones you keep. That is not selfishness, that is freedom. Burden 2. Guilt that does not belong to you. Your adult son is struggling. Your daughter went through a painful divorce. Your grandchildren are having difficulties. And in the quiet hours, the voice returns. Where did I go wrong? What should I have done differently? Was it the years I worked too much? The times I was not patient enough? The choices I made that I cannot undo? This is the guilt that does not belong to you, and it is one of the heaviest things you carry. Research in gerontology has found that feelings of guilt are deeply common among older adults, particularly when they witness the difficulties of the people they love. Older adults are far more likely than younger people to connect the struggles of their children and grandchildren directly to their own past choices. The reasoning is not always logical, but it is always painful. I was the parent, therefore the suffering is somehow mine to own. But consider something carefully. Your children are adults. They have had decades of their own choices, their own relationships, their own turning points that had nothing to do with you. Their path has been shaped by 1,000 forces you never controlled and will never know fully. The idea that their suffering is proof of your failure is not truth. It is the mind's way of trying to maintain control over something that was never in your hands. The Buddha spoke of seeds and weather. A farmer plants with care, with skill, with love. But the farmer does not command the rain, does not own the frost, does not control the seasons that come and go, regardless of how much they are needed or unwanted. You planted seeds. You planted many of them. Some grew into things beyond what you hoped. Some were met by weather you could not predict and could not prevent. Their path is theirs. Not as abandonment, not as indifference, but as truth. Pema Chodron, one of the most honest voices in Western Buddhism, writes that the identities we cling to most fiercely, the stories we tell about who we are and what we caused, are like clouds that temporarily block the sun. The sun is still there. You are still a person who loved and tried. The cloud of guilt is not the whole picture. Whisper it to yourself when the familiar weight rises. Their path is theirs. I did what I knew how to do. That is enough. Burden 3. The need to fix everyone. You still call to check whether they followed your advice. You lie awake thinking of solutions to problems that are not yours to solve. When someone in your life is hurting, Your first instinct is not to sit beside them, but to reach for a tool, to fix, to correct, to make it better. This is not a flaw. This impulse came from love. It grew from every moment you watched someone you cared about suffer and felt the urgent, aching need to make it stop. But there is something worth seeing clearly here. Constant rescuing is not always an act of love. Sometimes it is an act of control, wearing love's clothing, and it costs you more than you realize, because you cannot carry everyone above the water indefinitely. At some point, you sink, and then no one is helped. Ajahn Chah, the great Thai forest monk whose teachings shaped generations of Buddhist practitioners, spoke often about the difference between genuine compassion and anxious intervention. True compassion, he taught, begins with stillness, with presence, not with solutions. A person sitting quietly beside someone in pain, breathing with them, witnessing them, is often doing more than the person furiously trying to arrange a rescue. There is a moment in every strong relationship where the one who always helps must ask an uncomfortable question. Am I helping because they need it, or am I helping because I cannot bear to watch them struggle? That question takes courage, because if the honest answer is the second one, then the help is really about your own discomfort. And your own discomfort is not a reason to rob someone of their chance to find their own ground. This is not bitterness, this is clarity. You are allowed to offer your presence without offering solutions. You are allowed to sit beside someone and say simply, I am here. What do you need? You are allowed to let them answer, and to honor the answer, even when it is not what you expected. This week, try offering presence instead of solutions. Just once. See what happens in the space that opens. And if it feels uncomfortable, if the silence feels like failure, notice that. Notice how deeply the fixing impulse is tied to your sense of worth, because that is the real teaching here. The compulsion to fix is often underneath everything, a fear that if you cannot solve the problem, you have no value. That love is something you earn through usefulness. But love is not earned, it is given. And presence, genuine, unhurried presence, is one of the most generous forms of love there is. You do not need a solution to be enough for the people you care about. You only need to show up fully, without your toolbox in hand. Burden 4. The strong one, the responsible one, the peacemaker, the one who makes sure everything runs, the one who never breaks down, the one everyone calls when something goes wrong. You have been playing this role so long that you may have forgotten it is a role. It feels like you. It has the shape of you. It answers to your name. But is it actually you? The Buddha taught what he called anatta, which we might translate simply as, you are not a fixed story. You are not the coat you have been wearing for 50 years. You are not the script that the family handed you when you were young. You are a living, breathing, changing being who happens to have worn this coat for a very long time. Erik Erikson, the psychologist who spent his life studying how human beings grow across all stages of life, observed that people in their later years often face a quiet crisis of identity when the roles that define them begin to shift. Retirement strips away the professional role. Children grow up and no longer need to be tended. The body changes, and the old physical role, the strong one, the capable one, becomes harder to sustain. And without those roles, many people feel as though they do not know who they are. But here is the thing that I find genuinely moving about this. That disorientation is not a crisis, it is an invitation. The question of who am I without this role is not a tragic question. It is perhaps the most important question of a human life. And after 70, you finally have enough distance from the noise to hear the answer. Wearing a coat that no longer fits does not make you warmer. It just makes you smaller. Ask yourself this week, gently and without judgment, who am I without this role? Not what do I do, not what do people need from me, but who am I beneath all of that, when the room is quiet and no one is watching? The answer might surprise you. It might be warmer and softer and stranger and freer than the role you have been performing. Give it a chance to breathe, because here is what I have noticed in the stories of people who finally put the old roles down. They do not become less caring. They become more honestly present. When they stop performing the strong one, they discover they have actual strength, not performed strength, to offer. When they stop being the automatic peacekeeper, they find that genuine peace becomes possible for the first time. The role was a substitution for the real thing, and the real thing was always there, waiting beneath it. Burden 5. Fear of social judgment about aging. You hesitate before you buy that bright scarf. You second-guess the class you wanted to take, the trip you wanted to plan, the thing you wanted to try. There is a voice, familiar and intrusive, that says, "Act your age. You are too old for that. What will people think?" I want to say something directly to that voice. Society fears aging more than you do. The discomfort people feel around the visible signs of getting older is not about you. It is about their own fear of time, their own unwillingness to look at what is coming. You are not the problem. You are the mirror. And some people cannot stand what they see in you because what they see is truth. The truth is this: aging is not decline, it is ripening. There is a Japanese aesthetic concept called wabi-sabi, which finds beauty precisely in the worn, the weathered, the imperfect, the aged, a cracked bowl repaired with gold, a stone worn smooth by decades of rain, a tree whose bark has been shaped by wind and weight into something no young sapling could resemble. This is not beauty despite age. This is beauty because of it. Buddhism has its own way of saying this. The teaching of anicca, which we might call everything changes, is not a cause for grief. It is a reminder of what is actually precious. The autumn leaf does not apologize for being orange. It does not wish it were still green. It simply burns with its own particular light for the brief and unrepeatable season that it has. You are in your autumn. And autumn is not a diminishment. It is a particular kind of radiance that spring cannot produce. This week, do one thing purely for joy, not for anyone else, not to prove something, not to stay relevant. One thing that your body or heart has been wanting without the committee's permission. Let autumn be colorful. And when the voice returns, as it will, and says you are too old for this, too visible, too much, I want you to try something small. Ask the voice whose idea that actually is. Ask it where it came from. Ask it whether the person who originally said it was speaking truth or speaking fear. You will find, if you look honestly, that most of that voice belongs to people who were themselves afraid. Afraid of time. Afraid of their own aging, afraid of what it means to live fully in a body that is changing. You do not have to carry their fear. You have enough of your own work to do. Burden 6. Scarcity, fear from the past. You have a drawer somewhere that still holds rubber bands that might be useful. You have food in the back of the pantry that has been there for years because you might need it. You say yes to things you no longer want because someone might need you. You hold on, just in case. This fear came from somewhere real. For many people who are now in their 70s, it was built during times of genuine scarcity, economic hardship, war, periods when having enough was not guaranteed and holding on was wisdom. But the conditions that created the fear have changed. The fear itself has not. And now it runs on its own momentum, independent of present reality, independent of actual need. It has become a habit of the nervous system, a low hum of anxiety that has nothing to do with your actual circumstances. The Buddha said something that has always struck me as both simple and profound. He said that the tighter you hold sand, the faster it slips through your fingers. Scarcity thinking does not create security. It creates a constant awareness of what might be lost, and that awareness is itself a form of suffering, because it keeps you living in a future that has not arrived, rather than a present that is actually here. There is also something worth naming that goes deeper than practical fear of running out. Often, beneath the scarcity about money or resources, is a scarcity about something else entirely, a fear that there is not enough time, not enough love, not enough acknowledgement, not enough proof that the life was well spent. And that kind of scarcity cannot be fixed by saving rubber bands. Security begins inside, not in the drawer, not in the savings account, though practical care is reasonable and wise, but in the part of you that knows, when you are very honest, that you have enough, that you are enough, that this moment, right now, is actually sufficient. Take one breath with this. In this moment, I am safe, not tomorrow, not next year. Right now, in this breath, I am safe. Let that be enough for just a few seconds. Notice how it feels to believe it, even briefly. I think there is something almost revolutionary about that practice for people who have spent decades in a state of managed anxiety. The nervous system learns. It learns that the world is dangerous, or uncertain, or inadequate, through years of evidence that felt very real. And it takes patient, gentle repetition to teach it something different. Not a single moment of dramatic release, but the slow building of a new habit, a habit of noticing when things are actually okay, a habit of resting in the present rather than scanning the horizon for the next threat. You do not have to solve the scarcity today. You do not have to become someone who trusts easily and holds loosely all at once, but you can practice, just a little, just today, the radical act of believing that this moment is enough. Burden 7. Emotional baggage from decades ago. There is an argument you had 15 years ago that you can still replay in detail. The exact words, the moment the voice changed. What was not said but hung in the air like smoke. You have gone over it so many times that the memory is worn smooth, like a stone you have been turning in your pocket for years without realizing it. There is a betrayal you never quite forgave, a disappointment that left a mark, a falling out that was never properly resolved, an apology you never received and one you maybe never gave. This is emotional baggage, and unlike the suitcase in the closet, it has no physical weight, but you know exactly how heavy it is. The Buddha taught about what he called the second arrow. The first arrow is the original pain, the wound itself, the harsh word, the broken trust, the loss. That arrow is real. It struck you. You did not choose it. But the second arrow is what we do next. The second arrow is the replaying, the rehearsing, the keeping of the wound alive long after the original event has ended. And the second arrow, unlike the first, is one we fire ourselves. You are not required to relive what already ended. Think about what that means. The argument, the betrayal, the old hurt, those events finished. The people involved may have moved on, changed, forgotten, died. The circumstances that created them have dissolved into the past. Only your attention keeps them present. Only your mind, turning that stone over and over, maintains the friction. This does not mean pretending nothing happened. It does not mean the hurt was not real or that the person who hurt you was not wrong. It means that continuing to drink from that cup serves no one. It does not heal the past. It does not change what happened. It only poisons the present, which is the only place you actually live. Carrying expired medicine in your pocket will not make you well. It has simply been there so long that you have stopped noticing it is there at all. Choose one memory this week, one that you no longer want to rehearse, not to make it disappear, not to pretend it did not happen, but to simply stop turning the stone. To put it down on a table, look at it once, and walk away from the room. That is the beginning of release. That is the first step toward a quieter interior. There is a story in the Buddhist tradition about the monk Angulimala, a man who had caused serious harm to many people before he encountered the Buddha. The meeting changed him entirely, and he became a devoted practitioner who eventually found genuine peace. When asked how it was possible for someone with his history to attain such stillness, the teaching was simple: because he stopped carrying the past into every present moment. He acknowledged what had happened, he transformed his direction, and then he allowed himself to live fully in the life that remained. You may not have done anything close to what Angulimala did, but the principle is the same. The past is real, the hurt was real, and your life today, your actual living, breathing present, is also real. And it deserves your full presence more than the old argument does, more than the unanswered betrayal, more than the wound you have been tending for years out of a loyalty to pain that does not actually ask for your devotion. You have already survived what happened. Now comes the harder and more beautiful work of letting it be over. Burden 8. Fear of disappointing others. You said yes when every part of you was saying no. You stayed in the room when what you needed was to leave. You swallowed the opinion that was pressing against your teeth because you did not want the discomfort of saying it. You bent. You accommodated. You made yourself smaller and called it kindness. I understand why. The fear of disappointing people you love is not a weakness. It is evidence of how much you care. It is proof that you took your relationship seriously, that you valued harmony, that you understood the cost of conflict. Those are not bad instincts. But there comes a point in a life well and honestly examined where a person must ask, whose life am I living? Whose peace am I protecting at the cost of my own? If I am spending my energy managing everyone else's reactions to reality, am I ever actually present in my own life? A soft heart must stand on a firm spine. These two things are not opposites. Gentleness and clarity can live in the same person. Compassion and honest limits can come from the same place. The person who loves you genuinely is not served by your performance. They are served by your truth. There is a candle metaphor that has stayed with me. A candle burning itself into nothing to keep others warm. It sounds generous, but a candle that burns itself to nothing has no more light to give. The giving was real, the sacrifice was real, but at the end, the room is dark and the candle is gone. No one benefits from that, not in the long run. Pema Chodron writes about what she calls the groundlessness of our situation, the fact that we are never truly in control of what others feel or think or decide. Trying to prevent everyone's disappointment is not just exhausting, it is impossible. And the effort to do the impossible is the source of a particular kind of quiet suffering that never announces itself but is always present. Practice one gentle, respectful no this week, not a cold refusal, not an explanation that fills 3 paragraphs, just a clear, warm, honest, no, that does not work for me. Notice how the world does not end. Notice what remains when you give yourself that small permission, that small act of standing on your own spine, setting it all down. Let us look at what we have named tonight. Expectations, guilt, the compulsion to fix, the roles you inherited, the fear of being judged for aging, the anxiety of scarcity, the old wounds you keep reopening, the terror of disappointing someone. None of these were fully yours. They were borrowed. They were handed down or handed over or quietly accumulated across decades without you ever formally agreeing to carry them. You took them on because you were loving, because you were responsible, because you believed that was what good people did. And you are a good person. That was never in question. But good people also deserve to set things down. I want you to imagine something, not a dramatic gesture, not a ceremonial releasing, just this, a quiet afternoon, a chair by a window, and you, sitting in it without an agenda on your shoulders, no problem to solve, no feeling to manage, no expectation to meet, just you in the afternoon light, breathing. That image might feel foreign. It might even feel guilty, because doing nothing has been branded into you as laziness, as selfishness, as a privilege you have not earned. But that is exactly the point. The discomfort you feel at the idea of simply resting is itself evidence of how much you have been carrying. It is the echo of every borrowed burden telling you that you are not allowed to put it down yet. You are allowed. The Buddha's teaching on clinging is precise and practical. He did not say that all holding on is wrong. Ajahn Chah, who understood this as well as anyone, taught that there is a difference between clinging through ignorance and holding with wisdom. Holding with wisdom means you engage, you love, you care, and then you release the outcome. You give fully without gripping the result. You show up without demanding that showing up be enough to control what happens next. This is not the peace of indifference. This is the peace of someone who has given everything genuinely and then let the world be what it is. That is a different kind of tiredness than the one you came in with tonight. It is the tiredness that comes after real work, not the tiredness that comes from carrying what does not belong to you. There is a version of your next chapter that is lighter, not empty, not lonely, not stripped of meaning, but lighter. A version where you wake up in the morning and the weight is not already there before the day has asked anything of you. Where your care for the people you love is not entangled with responsibility for outcomes you cannot control. Where your identity is not housed entirely in a role that was given to you decades ago. Where the old wounds are in the past, acknowledged and real, but no longer living in your chest like something that needs daily tending. That version is available, not as a fantasy, as a genuine possibility, reachable by the kind of small, honest, consistent practice of returning things to where they belong. Expectations. Return them gently to the people whose preferences they are. Guilt. Return it to the past, where it was created and where it must stay. The fixing impulse. Offer it presence instead of solutions and see what that does for everyone involved. The old roles. Let them rest. Discover who you are beneath them. The judgment of others. Let the autumn leaf be orange without apology. The scarcity fear. Take one breath of enough and let it be real, even briefly. The old baggage. Put down the stone. Walk out of the room. The fear of disappointing. Let the spine hold the heart, both at once. This is not about becoming someone who does not care. You will always care. That is not the problem and was never the problem. This is about learning to care from a place that is whole rather than from a place that has been hollowed out by decades of carrying what was never yours. After 70, peace does not come from carrying more. It comes from the gentle, clear-eyed act of returning what was never yours. And when you do, something shifts. The shoulders drop a little. The breath goes a little deeper. The afternoon light through the window looks a little different. A lighter chapter quietly begins. What burden are you ready to return?